Hi guys, it's Sophie. So today I wanted to bring you my 2016 yearly wrap up. So you guys know the drill if you've seen me do these videos before. I did some quarterly ones earlier on in the year, but this is the full year wrap up. Just another disclaimer. I'm queen of disclaimers at the moment. If you can see a laptop at any point, that's where I'm taking the stats from, so if a strange black bar arrives, that is actually me. Okay, so we're going to start with like the numbers on the post-it notes that I normally do. I read 200 books in the year 2016, so for those of you who had seen my last video where I was like umming and ahhing about whether I was going to make it, I did. Yay, which is equivalent to reading 17 books a month on average. Now my total with graphic novels and children's book picture books excluded is 189, so I know some people like to know that, so that's sort of full-on adult or YA books that I've read in the year. And that's an equivalent of 57,603 pages, and I have an average page count of 288. Now that's quite interesting because the 288 is certainly lower than I had last year, which would tend me to believe, because I read 186 last year, that probably the majority of those sort of that I picked up actually doesn't make that much of an odds in terms of pages. I think I read about 5,000 more, maybe 10,000 more pages than I did last year, but it seems as though I was pushing in a lot more small books, which would boost my numbers, and I kind of knew I was doing that because we talked about that in my Why I Want to Read Less video, that I felt I was artificially inflating my numbers to reach my 200. Now if you watched my Read Harder wrap up, you'll know I completed 21 of the 24 challenges on that one. Now we're going to go through my charts as per usual. So the first one I normally show you guys is books per month. So you can kind of see how it fluctuates throughout the year. I found this year that the early year was very strong, and actually I kind of stopped reading a bit in the summer, which I think I did the same last year thinking about it, and then back up again as the months became colder, and the Goodreads challenge loomed. But so I do have a sort of cycle of reading throughout the year, and it appears that if this year's like last year, I'm about to go into my sort of busier time, and I'll eke off again in the summer when there's things to do outside. Now the next section is genre. I find genre quite interesting because I know a lot of people came here for my non-fiction content. So graphically, 23% of what I've read this year has been non-fiction, which is a fair amount to be honest, and 29% clocking in a sort of pure fiction. Other sort of notables would be short stories, which was 11%, poetry, which was 5%, graphic novels 6%, and a couple other sort of speckled in there like historical fiction, horror, etc. But so really the sort of literary fiction and the non-fiction are fairly well balancing out each other, and the genre fiction are taking up the rest, which I think is really interesting. It was more as though I think I had about 5 or 6% non-fiction last year, so definitely a big increase there, and I really enjoyed it, so I think I'm going to keep going with my non-fiction throughout 2017. Age group is 94% adult, 5% children's, and whatever the remainder is, like 2%, 1% YA. Now in my last year wrap up I said that I wanted to keep my YA about 5 to 10%. That hasn't happened, and I'm not sorry for it at all. Not any kind of insult to those of you who do really enjoy YA. I just don't feel as though my reading has been negatively impacted by the fact I haven't read YA. Star rating, if you have a look at the graph you can see I'm rating the majority of my books sort of 3 and 4 stars, and I've been a little bit more choosy about my 5-star reads this year, so I only gave 19 books 5 stars this year, and I gave I think 34 5 stars last year. My average star rating, because again I know I quite like to do that anyway, is 3.2, and I try and aim for around 3, so I think it was 3.3 last year, 3.2, that seems to be about where I'm going to stick it to make my star rating make sense to me. Now page length, last year's graph showed me sort of hovering around the 200 to 399 section. This year it's definitely 100 to 299. I've boosted my numbers by reading shorter books. Not consciously, I haven't sat down and thought like, oh, I'm going to read loads of short books to get to my goal, but that's what's happened, and that just again like reassures me that I'm doing the right thing by trying to read less in 2017. EA's published, to those of you who've seen these kind of things before, no great sort of interest for you there. I read modern books for the vast majority of the time. I read a few 70 books from the 70s, 11 books from the 70s, a little bit of a spike there. Not really sure what that would have been to do with, but oh well, I guess sometimes that sort of happens. And the next section is talking about sort of the author themselves. So gender's an annoying one for me, because you guys know that I tried really hard in 2015 to keep it like 50-50, because I found that I was reading a lot more men automatically, and felt that as someone who talks about this kind of thing on a public forum and who is encouraging people to buy books, if I am already perpetuating the kind of bias that's there already. I'm really not helping matters much, and it would be better if I did make some kind of effort to try and make sure I'm equalising any unbalance that's inherent in the system itself. And I did that for the beginning of 2016. I tried really hard to keep it balanced, and then do you know what? About halfway through, I just said screw it, and I stopped reading, I stopped seeking out female authors consciously. And I ended up with bias again, and I kind of knew I would because that's the way I go naturally. I ended up with a 58% male bias to a 42% female bias, and if you watch my 2017 reading resolutions, I'm going to try and push that back next year to try and equalise that again, percentage wise rather than numbers wise, because as I mentioned I'm trying to read less, but just making myself be aware that actually I am, I'm making this part of the problem. I'm buying books that are just easily marketable. I'm just consuming, I'm not thinking, and that's something that this whole year, that's the one thing that I'm taking forward is you think, you do not consume. You don't just take what you're given, you actually have to consider it and take time with it, and I'm not doing that. I was just being like a little person just going out and doing whatever's already in that marketplace for me. So I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to try really hard to keep that in mind, and I think probably in 2017 I'm going to be buying a few more books online because I've really enjoyed going to more local bookshops, which I'll talk about in a bit, but it does mean that you tend towards stuff that's laid out on tables and marketing. That's how marketing works, whereas I think I can probably have a bit more of a sort of reflective view if I do it online. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more. On author nationality, this is one I'm really pleased with. Again, I was really pleased with myself last year. So last year I had around 60% of the books that I was reading coming from the United States, and that was irritating to me. And I said I wanted to get it down. I knew that it was going to take time. It's currently at 46, and I think it's actually a bloody impressive reduction from reading of one country, considering how substantial that was. I still read 92 books from the States, and to be honest, the States and the UK are bound to be larger categories because I speak English as my sort of mother tongue. I don't speak any other language, so I'm kind of going to be more easily drawn to other countries that speak English as their base language. The UK came out at 27, which I don't think is dissimilar to what it was last year. I think a few percent higher. But yes, so what I filled that gap with really is other countries. I read from a total of 31 different countries in 2016, which is great. I think I read from 21, 22 in the year previous, and I've just been really happy with the variety of stuff that I'm reading. That's something I definitely want to keep up and keep doing. That's the thing I've been proud of the last 2 years. So that's again another thing that consciously I'm going to try and go out there and spread the way that I'm thinking. I'm not just going to immediately go for Western books and for the kind of thoughts and processes that I hear from my media and from the people around me. I want to sort of hear their own voices from people in completely different scenarios to me and understand why they might have a different sort of social structure to me, and that's massively important to me. I'm really proud of the diversity in terms of country that I've achieved this year, and I'm going to push myself to do better next year, regardless of the fact I want to read less books. Now the next one's author race. This is a new category for me in 2016 because I realised I wasn't tracking it and thought, I probably should just have a peek. I'm reading 80% white authors and 20% people of colour, which isn't representative of the society, the sort of worldwide society that I'm reading from. And part of that's that American side, and the UK side is when I'm reading those books, they're comfort books. They're books that are similar to me. They're books that are reaffirming the kind of beliefs and structures and social structures that I'm used to and I'm comfortable with, and by dint of that, a lot of it means it comes from people who are the same race, who have a similar sort of cultural and societal backgrounds to myself. And I said in my 2017 resolutions that I want to push that up to 30% this year, with my ideal being about 33%, but 30% is my baseline aim, the same way 60% is my baseline female aim, and if I did more, I'm not actually stressed because I've found in my 200 books I have significant bias on either side. So it's more about not necessarily saying everything has to be 100% equal, everything has to be 50% female, 50% male to be fair, but for me it's more about learning and exploring things that I wouldn't naturally gravitate towards, and that's really what I want to try and do. And, you know, partly just giving money to people who find it harder to, like, actually get to talk about their lives and talk about their things. And if people who read, like, 200 books a year won't buy those books, who's really going to? Like, you're never going to get, like, J-Blogs Public to pick these books up if people who do reading as their main thing can't be asked. So, yeah, we can chat about that. You know, there are hundreds of other booktubers who can chat about that far more eloquently than I have. But that's my overvalued sort of view from 2016 and what I hope to do next year. New to me authors, when I tracked in 2015, I read 75% new authors, 25% authors I read before. That stayed steady, so I'm actually taking that out for 2017 because I expect it's probably going to stay steady going forward. And I might track it again in future, but I'm not going to be tracking it in the upcoming year, just because if stats for me are staying very steady, it implies to me that that's probably just a way I'm reading and something that doesn't really stress me. I would rather be reading more new authors anyhow, and that I am and have been steadily means I'm not going to stress about it in 2017. Publishing house is an interesting one. We've got sort of a few big players in there. We've got Penguin, we've got Picador, we've got Bloomsbury, and we have Faber and Faber, and they're the sort of bigger categories you can see. But I've read from an awful lot of different publishing houses this year, which I really enjoy, I really like. I think it's really important to read things from different sort of outlets. So, you know, I'm just going to keep tracking that in 2017, see how it goes, see if I've got the same sort of stuff popping up, or whether I am tending towards different kind of publishers over time. But it's just interesting. I'm not really wanting to change anything about that yet. I've not had enough data in to decide what I think. And then the last thing to look over is my spending, my purchasing of books, which is something that not too many people talk about on BookTube. There was a Twitter discussion a little while ago that was absolutely fabulous that talked about the amount of money we spend on books and the amount of our income we spend on books, and how that's sort of something that no one really chats about in BookTube. I'm happy to, it doesn't really bother me too much. If we have a look at my summary sheet, we can see that. Okay, so in total I spent around £100 a month on books, £100 and 59 pence on average. So about £1,200 a year on books. That's a fuck ton of money. That really is a lot of money to be spending on one thing. That is including all of the books I've been sort of gifted or been sent to review. They're all as zero books, but I bought a total of 181, all was gifted in that year. Now, that it works perfectly because basically I had a 0 TBR at the beginning of 2016, didn't I? Because 0 by 16, and I'd read 200 odd books. So the difference there, why it wasn't just exactly 200, is because I had a few for Christmas, and I do have some for Christmas this year, but really buying that many books is not sustainable for me. It's not something that makes sense for me sort of economically. I did go to the library and borrow some books, and I may well do that next year, but I think if I'm going to be trying to read around 52 books, I already have about 26 or 28 on my TBR at the moment. And actually, sort of 30 to 50 books, which is what I expect to buy, is far more reasonable than 200 nearly that I bought last year. It's just a thing, it's what I spend a lot of my money on, and it is a lot of money. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's an insubstantial amount of money. Even, like, for me, that's a lot of money, and I'm happy, I'm comfortable in my life. And, like, I have all the things I want, basically. Like, I'm recording on a camera, and I have a microphone and a laptop. Like, I understand that I'm very privileged to have those things, but it's still a lot of money, and I don't think I can spend that much going forward. That said, we can have a look at purchases per month. You can see it tends to be low in January and weirdly in April, which I think was the month I decided to do a big library no buy that month because I realised how much money I'd spent the year before. It goes up in the summer, and you can kind of see like a few peaks around sort of pre-Christmas stuff. One, like as new things come in, like the end of August, beginning of September, but generally there's a kind of spread throughout the year where with a few peak months and a few sort of standard-ish months. Yeah, I'm going to be buying less because I'm going to be reading less. So we'll see what that looks like next year. I'm not sure quite how it will appear yet. And I might try and ask for more stuff for review. I'm really bad at asking for stuff for review. I always feel like I'm being rude or I'm taking too much from publishers. So I actually need to try and do that because I need to understand that they have a benefit too if I chat about stuff on this channel. If we look at purchase type very quickly, because I know I'm blathering, 26% has been non-fiction buying, 42% has been fiction, and the rest has been sort of other categories, fairly in keeping with what I expected, to be honest. The non-fiction matches up pretty well, and probably I'm not being as picky and putting things into categories in my purchasing, so more is flagging as fiction, so that kind of makes sense. And then the very last thing is purchase location. So this is something I focused on quite a lot in 2016. I didn't really know I was until like midway through the year. it was buying stuff in local bookshops and trying to support bookshops in my area. So it's much cheaper and it's much easier to buy things online. That's the reality. But I really value physical bookshops. I find they're a really important thing in my life. So I wanted to make sure that as much as possible I was visiting those in person, making purchases in person, and having part of that experience and not letting it die away. So 44% of what I bought was from sort of chain bookshops. 15% was from independent bookshops. There's only one in the town I live in, and it is mostly a second-hand bookshop, and I buy books new, so they only have 2 shelves of new books, but 15% isn't too bad, considering that. 7% was from the library, 3% was from charity books, so second-hand bookshops, or sort of directly Oxfam kind of things. 6% was for review, 1% was from supermarkets, and that means the remaining 24% was what I bought online, which is a big difference to what I'd done previously. Only 24% where I hadn't gone physically to a place and bought the book. I can't carry on doing that next year, I don't think. Though I might do 1 year on, 1 year off. Just monetary wise, one of my goals for 2017 is to save a bit of money, and the reality is shopping for stuff online is cheaper. It just is. And if you look at the average spend per book, I think for this year it's been, let's have a quick peek. Yeah, for this year it's been about £6.67 for each individual book that I bought. When I did most of my shopping online last year, I think it was about £4.90 per book, which is actually significant when you think that this is the thing I spend most of my disposable income on. So, I can't keep that up next year, but I think I probably will try and do 1 year on, 1 year off, so that I'm able to sort of keep doing other things I want and keep making savings, whilst still trying to support things with my money, which tends to be one of the biggest bargaining powers you have as an individual. So hopefully you've enjoyed hearing me chat about my reading in 2016. It's been a very chatty video, hasn't it, rather than sort of very points based, but hopefully you've enjoyed that, and it's been fun to hear me just chat through some stuff. Fiddling again with the camera, I don't know if I'm in any more focus, I'm kind of squinting at my little screen trying to figure it out, but hopefully that's getting better. Really thank you guys for the feedback on last video and the mic and the audio and video stuff, because I'm just trying to fiddle with it and make sure it looks right for you guys, and obviously there's a lot of you sort of seeing it, so it's helpful to get your feedback as well as just seeing it for myself. I really hope that you're having a lovely day, and that you are sort of looking back on your reading and feeling positive about how it went, and reflecting on things. It's really important. You need to reflect on things. You shouldn't just intake it and just never think about it again. What you read and what you intake as a media changes who you are as a person, and it is important that you look at it and you see sort of where that's come from. Ordinarily I don't sort of say things like that. I don't say such direct things. I'll sort of more obliquely suggest that you might do things, but I genuinely think it's important to consider the media that you are taking in, and the ways that you're getting that media, the kind of things that can play into you not receiving other parts of information. Really big thing, guys. So do just take a little bit of time, even if it's just 5 minutes, to just think about your reading from last year. I'll see you guys soon in my next video, which is going to be my 2017 spreadsheet video, which for some of you will be exciting, and some of you will go, oh god, no, what are you doing, Sophie? But I'm going to be sharing my reading spreadsheets with you guys, so where I get these numbers, these stats. I'm going to be making it available for download as well, so that if any of you are interested in tracking it using the same spreadsheet I use, then you're more than welcome to. It's going to be a free download for you guys just to have a look at. So hopefully you're excited for that one, and I'll see you guys soon in my next video. Bye bye.